This is SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I am your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by a 3-day streak man on Duolingo. I think he made it to 3 days once.
I'm that meme. It's like day one, starting Duolingo. Day one, starting Duolingo.
That's right. Yeah, he is trying so hard, and his Spanish really great. Muy bueno. Casey Trio, my co-host, as always, glad to have you here. We are joined today by Kat Brigham, who is the founder of Catalyst CX. She's a fractional consultant who helps SaaS teams design smarter digital customer experiences. And we are super pumped to have you on. Kat, welcome to SaaS Therapy.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Also, 3 days on Duolingo, good streak to have, you know.
Right?
I'm not even that good at keeping up with things that consistently, so hey.
Well, Kat, we're so glad to have you on the podcast, and I'm very excited about the topics because one of my favorite TV shows ever was Mythbusters, and that's kind of our theme that we're going to go through today is the 3 misconceptions about digital customer success. And I think everyone knows our audience is pretty broad inside of customer education, inside of customer success. But if you could just quickly define out digital CS, and then let's dive into misconception number 1. But give everybody a background around what it means to you, and then let's start out with misconception number 1.
Yeah. So digital customer success is, I think if you're in the CS world or customer experience, you know what it is, but I also think if you're not in that at all, you have no clue because it is still kind of a niche. And I think really the term has probably only existed for a little over 5 years or so. To me, digital customer success is the serving up information and education to your customers at scale through the use of technology, AI, and balancing in the human element as well. I think that digital means like, yes, there is a lot of tech being used in it, but also you still have to figure out how do I balance this out with humans so that it's effective and efficient in the way that we communicate to customers instead of just relying on a traditional, one-to-many CSM book of business type of model.
Okay. That I think that's helpful. For me, I think if I were to ask someone in the SaaS world what they think of when they hear digital CS, most people I think would say, well, it's for my small customers who I can't talk to on the phone, so I'm just going to email. I'm going to email you instead of meet with you. And would you say that's fair? That's kind of what I feel like the impression is out there. Is most people look at digital CS as like email instead of meet. And maybe as we jump in, maybe is that a fair? Is that a simple like part? Yeah, that's part of it, or is it like no? You're kind of missing the boat if you're just thinking it's email instead of meet.
I think that is. So I'll say that I think that's one of the misconceptions, but I think it's a fair misconception. Like I understand where people are coming from when they say that. Because a big portion of digital CS is emailing. It is in-app messaging. It is using video. It is trying to figure out, okay, if these book of customers don't have the ability, if I don't have enough CSMs to reach out to and have, say, a QBR or a success call with every single customer in our entire book of business, how else am I going to reach out to them? That means you're going to be using a lot of emailing and videos and in-app messaging and gifting services and yada yada to have those touch points with them instead of meetings. So it's a fair assumption. Where I think that people are missing out on some of the benefits and magic of digital CS is that they are only doing it for their SMB or their long tail, their smaller customers, whatever they call that particular segment at their business. Because sometimes, like, if a digital CS strategy is done well, it should apply across the entire into the entire, like, your all of your customers, your enterprise customers, your mid-market customers, and your SMB, all of the above.
Yeah, Todd, we just actually dove into misconception number one right off the bat. Kat, so let's walk through this a little bit. So most people start in SMB because if I screw up there, then most people are like, it wasn't as big a deal as if I'm screwing up with one of my major enterprise accounts, right? So as I'm thinking about creating something that can apply, obviously we're going to probably start in SMB, but it should be also be able to apply inside of enterprise. What are some of those best practices that I should be thinking about? Because you mentioned off a bunch of different technology tools I could be using. Am I more concerned about the frequency? Am I looking at data and where people go? Give me some of your points. I know this is what you do for a living, but what are some best practices that people should be thinking about as they start to set this up?
Yeah. So just to your point, I think starting in SMB is a best practice because it's a good place to test and trial some things and figure out what works for your audience, and then take that and scale it up into your next segments. So that's probably a best practice to have, is start there, but don't stop there, I guess is my way of phrasing it. The second best practice that I would say, and I did list off a bunch of different technologies that you could use. Someone said this to me years and years ago when I was a scaled CSM, and just starting off in the world of digital customer success. But they mentioned that this phrase 7 times 7 ways. Basically, what that means is it typically takes us as humans 7 times hearing something or seeing something to retain that information or be engaged with that information. And it's best if that's done in 7 different formats. So if you think about the way that you might learning a language, if we're going to use your Duolingo streak as an example here, the people that are learning language the quickest and the best often talk about you need to be listening and absorbing just background and noise of the language being spoken over and over again. They talk about watching shows in the language that you want to learn or listening to music that's in the language that you want to learn. So that's one way that you're obtaining information. Learning through an app is another way of learning that same information. Learning through different types of apps, or an Anki deck or something like that, is another way of learning information. If you have somebody you can talk with out loud or practice with, if you're living in the environment where people are speaking that language, there are all these different ways that you're going to be much more successful in actually learning a new language if you're doing all of these different avenues versus if you're just doing one. The same thing is true if you want to educate your customers on how to use your product correctly, or you want to increase adoption of how they're using your product so that your retention is higher. Communicating that information is going to take 7 times 7 ways. And so general best practice is to sit down and think about, what do we have in our arsenal that we could be using to communicate with our customers? Most people have a couple of things right out of the gate they can start using. Most people have emailing in some capacity, whether it's I've used a sales engagement tool to do emailing. I've used marketing tools to do emailing. Whatever is in your wheelhouse that some other team is probably using, there's probably some avenue there. Most companies also, especially in SaaS, have an in-app tool or are thinking about getting an in-app tool. I've installed a few at a couple of past companies that I've worked with. But that's another big one of being able to communicate, okay, not just in their inbox and in a long form email sort of format, but actually in the product, in quick bites of information. What does that look like? Third thing that a lot of people have access to already is video content, whether that's something that exists already inside of your LMS, your education platform, that you can repurpose things, or it's also super easy to get a Loom license or a Vidyard license for very cheap amounts and start making short-term video content that can be utilized as well. So it's a third one. And then you just kind of keep piling up from there and figuring out, okay, do we need to look at other things? Do we look at SMS? Do we look at using something like Sendoso for gifting? Do we look at I've done LinkedIn ads as a part of a digital CS strategy before. there's a lot of different avenues, but the point is to get to some portion where you're like, oh, webinars and like live events. It's another big one. But the point is to get, if we don't have the option to meet face to face with every single one of our customers, and we still want to make sure that they're getting the information that's important to them, we have to be a little bit creative in how we serve that up to them.
Well, and I like that from the perspective of if the issue is that we only think that we should just do this for our SMB customers, the fact of the matter is, like, one of the things I talk with Casey a lot about is, the first rule of improv is yes and. If you've ever looked into that before. And so, like, the point there is that digital CS isn't a or, it's an and. And so there's a scenario here where if we took those principles of how we can engage our customers with things that they want in a timely manner, at the right time and in the right format, that's something that should be broadly applicable to everybody. And yeah, we might learn and test and discover that in the SMB world. But if we then there's going to be so much value there that we could be offering to our larger customers. If all we do now is say, well, I'm going to hop on the phone with you for a cadence call every 2 weeks. Well, now we've actually created a worse experience for our bigger customers who could be getting way more value if we are then incorporating all of these great learnings and value that we're trying to offer to our smaller customers. Would that be a fair thing to think about in this idea of, like, it's more than just trying to reach people that you can't talk to? There's also great learnings on how to create a really great experience for your customer.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, if you build something that's really successful for your SMB customers, that can often be replicated exactly like one-to-one for your enterprise customers. And a lot of times it's incredibly beneficial to your enterprise customers too, because if you think about a lot of SaaS companies, what defines enterprise is like how big that spend is, right? Or how many seats and licenses they have. If your enterprise customer has 1,000 end users, and your CSM is only meeting with maybe 1 to 5 like points of contact, what about those other 900 people that aren't being met with regularly, that are still in the product daily, or that you want to be in the product daily because you want those licenses being used? What are we serving up to them? And that's a great position where, okay, the same stuff that we're trying to communicate to our small SMB customers can be applied to the end, these huge amounts of end users that are at our strategic and enterprise accounts as well. And it's another thing that I've seen when, I think this is like the hardest like change management thing for leadership to get their heads around, and for like traditional CSM teams to get their heads around, is this idea that it's not there to replace a strategic or an enterprise CSM, but it's there to be an additional layer of support and experience that will heighten that customer's experience with our organization and our product.
Ooh, okay. So now that brings up a really interesting follow-up question, mostly because I don't think I've ever considered this. Would you then recommend that if we're not trying to replace an enterprise CSM, that the digital CS motion should be something that happens with enterprise customers, but is not led by the enterprise CSM? Like, in other words, would you just say we should expand the touch point of the digital CS person, and then they're an augmentation, an additional support layer or resource that's going out to touch our enterprise customers, rather than having that be something that the enterprise CSM takes on? Does that make sense? Is that a weird, convoluted way to ask that question? It's like, would you say digital CS is something that enterprise CSM should incorporate into their playbooks, or should there be a separate person who specializes just in this digital format that's now augmenting and supporting the enterprise CSM? Does that make more sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think where I'm biased in answering this, but in my experience, what I've seen work well is the latter option, where you have someone who is a digital program manager, or leading a digital customer success team, or a team of program managers, where they're able to like dive down and specialize in that. And I say that because I think there are different skill sets that get developed. I am coming from the skill set of being a digital program manager and having that experience. I couldn't do an enterprise CSM's job. I don't have that same experience. And I think it's vice versa. So I think letting those two roles have a specific focus and have the skill sets shine in each of those focuses, and having a digital CSM or digital program manager that can apply strategy and augment it to fit enterprise customers or strategic accounts works a little bit better.
Okay, there's so many questions to ask now. All right, question number one: what should be some success metrics I should be thinking about as I roll this out? So if we say a play across SMB and inside of enterprise, what should success look like? What are some possible things that I could see? And then two, this is a selfish question, not selfish for me, but selfish in thinking about the digital scale person. Who gets credit? So we go to that example with the enterprise CSM, and hey, I did all this work, but then on the digital side, you said, yeah, but out of those 1,000 users, I reached 200 of them. Who gets credit? So question number one.
Yeah.
Around that, what should success look like? What are some commonalities that you give to people of, hey, here's what some things you should expect? And then two, if there is a CSM in play with this, how do we divide credit? How do we separate that so we really know who's influencing what?
Good questions. So for defining success, I will say there's a lot of leading and lagging indicators to look at. Leading indicators is, I think digital CS has a lot of those because it is kind of akin to customer marketing, where like you're using so much technology and you're running all of these messagings and campaigns. So there's a lot of things like open rates you can be looking at. There's things like engagement rates or completion rates with your in-app messaging to be looking at. There's things like registration numbers and attendance percentage for your live events. All of those like really quick and easy metrics that are usually served up to you like in the platform of the tool that you're using are genuinely helpful things to be looking at, because it's a great gut check of, is this even landing well or registering? Like, is the messaging that we're running registering with our customers? Are they finding value in what we're sending them, or do we need to shift what we're saying or what we're showing? And then on a lagging indicator side, where, and this has gotten so much easier in the world of AI than it was when I first started doing this, 7 years ago. But looking at the customers that are going through these new programs that we've launched, these new digital customer success programs, what does their retention number look like when they're coming up for renewal? Like, what impact are we having there? And draw correlations. There have been times where I've seen, 95% of customers that engage with, like, attend a live event are renewing or upgrading instead of churning or downgrading. Things like that, that's the big metrics where you can take that back to leadership and say, this is genuinely having an impact on the people that it's reaching, and it's genuinely having an impact on the bottom line of the money for this company. And then the third thing is adoption. Again, this has gotten a lot easier with some of the new technology that's coming out. It depends on what access you have as well. I think this is the hardest thing when it comes to anything in customer success, of trying to measure adoption. Really depends on what data you have access to or what data teams you can work with. But being able to say, we wanted these customers to reach this goal. We ran this program where we reached out to them with emails, we had an in-app messaging going, and we also invited them to a live event. And then 6 weeks after all of that was done, we saw X% increase in adoption of that particular part of the product or this particular feature. Those are other really big, like, cohort analysis things on adoption that can be important things to look at. In terms of your second question, who gets credit? This is, again, I'm biased here. I think that more can be done to give credit to digital customer success, CSMs, program managers, anyone in that sphere. And I think that's for two reasons. I think, again, there's still this huge misconception of, oh, they're only serving SMB, which unfortunately in the CS world, like there is a hierarchy, right? If you're an enterprise CSM versus like an SMB CSM, there's one of those roles is looked at as a little more entry level than the other one. And I think that kind of connotation comes into play when it comes to digital CSMs and digital CS program managers as well. And so that makes it a little bit, I think I've seen times where like the effort that those programs take to get live and the impact that they have across the entire customer book of business can be diminished or missed. But that said, like, I think it's a joint effort at the end of the day, especially when you're applying this stuff to accounts that have dedicated CSMs, because I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, the renewal only came because of the digital CS programs that were run. Like, no, I know that those CSMs are having difficult conversations and going through their risk playbooks and having their QBRs and doing all of those touch points. And that takes a lot of time and effort to build the relationship. So it is a joint effort at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the trick that I see, and I think this is a really good, it's a really interesting conversation to think through, because, if the proposal is, which by the way, I really like you calling it a program manager, because I wonder if that helps resolve some of the issues. Because when you call them a digital CS or digital CSM, now it sounds like I've got two CSMs and then we're going to be metriced the same way. And then the metrics that we receive or the benefits that we receive are going to be similar. And now we're fighting over the same pool of variable comp, right? So it's like, as a CSM, if I renew, if I hit certain, targets, I'm going to have on target earnings that are going to be much higher, right? Because I'm going to get bonuses, or I'm going to get commission, or however that's being structured from a pay perspective on the CS side is going to be based off of that. So now if you're bringing in two CSMs, that becomes really hard. And so like one of the things that's really interesting in Casey's question, we obviously don't have to try to figure all this out because it's probably different for everybody. And, there's probably a lot of CCOs out there who are screaming at me, you don't understand how complicated it is to figure out how to pay my people. But the thing that I think is really interesting in what you've said there is, if you thought of digital client success as something that is a programmatic element that's owned by an individual, that's different than someone who owns an account or an individual account, and they're augmenting and supporting your account approach, that's a whole different ballgame. And so like, maybe there's a whole question around where digital CS even should live. Is that actually something that lives in the, is it something that lives within CS, or is it really more of a product marketing motion? And I think there's been some businesses who have said, well, really, I should look at it as a product marketing function. And this is just going to be something that, like, as it develops and grows, is going to be something that is supported by our marketing team. Whereas like, or it becomes a product function. It's like if the product function or a CX team that owns that independently, and it wholly lives outside of CS. And so I don't know that there, basically I just opened this huge can of worms, Kat, and I don't know how we would go tackle any of those things, but I think that's one of the things that's really challenging about this question is, if you treat it the same way, then you expect to metric it the same way. And if you try to metric it the same way and multiple people are impacting the metric, now you have to say who had what percentage of the metric and who deserves to get paid for the outcome. And that becomes really, really hard to do if you're defining it in the exact same way. So that was a really long way of me basically entering in a whole bunch of questions without offering any solution.
Yeah, what was the question, dude?
There isn't one.
I just feel like that was Tommy Boy, where you were trying to To be fair, I just recently came back off of paternity leave, and Casey has told me that since being back, I just answer everything in these like really philosophical, political ways that don't actually provide any tangible answers. So I'm just, disclaimer everybody. When Billy Madison's trying to pass grade school,
having a new baby
like,
I'm sleep deprived. And my answers are way more meandering. But I'm curious, reaction to that, Kat. Obviously, the main question is, if digital CS is so distinct from CS, should we actually look at the metrics entirely differently so that there isn't that conflict between someone who owns getting the customer to re-sign the contract and somebody who's trying to drive behavior and adoption and value, which is like there's enough overlap that it can create a lot of tension, but there's enough distinction that maybe we could call out those distinctions better and avoid so much of that conflict.
Yeah, it's okay. So it's a good, I'll like clarify when I say it's a joint effort, it is a joint effort in like getting to the renewal, but in my experience, the like how someone is measured on if they are a successful employee is very different. If you have a traditional CSM, they're measured on how much of your book of business is renewing, right? Like that's the ultimate goal that you want to have as a CSM. You want to have healthy customers, green customer accounts that are renewing. Where I see digital customer program management being measured differently is they're measured on what impact are you having. So can we see any sort of impact on customers that are engaged with these programs, do renew, or like are more likely to renew, or do renew at higher rates? Are they upgrading more frequently than customers that maybe have not been historically, or maybe are not yet involved with the digital customer like programming that is being built out? And so using those two things does allow for some separation. The second thing I wanted to comment on in terms of your question that was not a question is the where digital CS sits. Because let me tell you, I've sat everywhere. Like I've been in customer education, I've been in customer success, I've been in customer experience. I haven't been in product marketing yet, but I know some aspects of what can fall into digital CS can often fall into product marketing, like in-app messaging is oftentimes a lot of time a big thing that happens in the product marketing sphere. Same thing like customer marketing is constantly being asked, like, oh, how is digital CS and customer marketing different? And I think, again, where that comes down to of where do you want this to sit or how are these roles different? It comes down to what is your end goal and what are you going to measure success by? If your end goal is awareness, like product awareness, then you might be sitting in product marketing. If your end goal is adoption increase, then you might be sitting in customer success. If your end goal is education dissemination, then you might be sitting in customer education. And I think it just depends a little bit on, what the organization needs is where they're going to say, this is where this role should live based off of where they particularly have a gap in their customer journey as it stands.
Awesome. Kat, like I told you, we're going to ask you questions that you can give your opinion on. You could change your opinion at any time. You could we have you on the podcast 2 weeks from now. You're like, I'm changing my opinion, right? So just so you know, I'm catching you by surprise with this question. You want a moment to think about it, you can have your moment to think about it. The only unacceptable answer is it depends. Okay? That's the only unacceptable answer. And I've asked this question probably 1,000 times to different guests, and they always start out with it depends. So, and even though I tell them they can't say it depends, they always say it depends. Okay, so here's the question. Inside of digital CS, you've mentioned some tools I could use. I could use SMS. I could use in product. I could use email. I could use a customer
video.
Videos, just video standalone, or your learning management system, your product academy, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Your product is trying to reach more than 100 licensed users. So your average size of account is 100 licensed users. Rank for me the top 3 tech tools you should be using in your digital CS to get to those 100 users. What's your best chance of success? Rank them for me in order of importance.
I'm going to ask a clarifying question for
No,
Kat.
you cannot. Todd, this is my question.
No, this is to help her give time to think about it. It's fine, okay? So, Casey, in this case, are you asking what's the best tool to make sure that I reach the highest percentage of those 100 users?
Yes, highest. So
I've got 100 users. I could reach 5. I could reach 50. I could reach 90. What is going to be the best thing that's going to reach the most number of
the 100 are going to interact.
The 100 are going to interact.
I'm going to give a hot take right here, Kat. I'm going to give a hot take. I have nothing against in-app product. I have nothing against it. Okay. There is not one part of me that doesn't say that you should use it. In the product that we have that we, brainstorm, this isn't me and Todd's day job, obviously, in doing a podcast, but we have in-app product in ours. But no one has ever shown me data that in-app product gets above 1% of your licensed users, of them actually clicking and watching to completion any training. And I always give the example of when I open up Outlook, again, no offense to my Microsoft people out there, but when it pops up and says, hey, you should do this inside of Copilot, or you should do this, we all X out. No one freaking clicks on the in-app messaging. So that was my hot take about that. Sorry, a little rant around it. But
Casey, you
I
hit
can't tell you,
I
can't tell you how many CCOs tell me that their strategy for 2026 is in-app product messaging. And I say, ask whoever you're working with to give you any data that shows you success stories where people are clicking all through in-app training. And not just that they looked at it, but they clicked through, went through the training, and it resulted with any of your metrics that you're looking for. And then what percent of those 100 users actually go in your app? So 50%. So how are you reaching the other 50%? It's just flawed in how that works. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. You should have it. Admins, I'm sure, are the biggest clickers of in-app messaging. People are setting up your software.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're the highest percentages. But an average Joe end user, none of us click on in-app messaging. We hate it.
If you can't
it's commercials.
If you can't tell, Casey does not have a strong opinion about this. So.
Yeah,
but
he's
Kat,
not at all passionate whatsoever.
You've done this more than I have. I'm just giving my personal experience. I think in-app product messaging, it should be there, but it's commercials to me. It's like I never watch commercials anymore. I try to avoid commercials at all times. Right?
No, I appreciate.
Kat, so give me your top three and give me your feedback. And again, you can say, Casey, that's a completely wrong take. That's a cool take. Yeah. I'm okay with that. That's what I like about this podcast. It's just conversation.
Before I get to my top three, I want to respond to that because I think you said a really good thing, which is this is my personal experience. And I think that is so, so important to think about when you are building your digital customer success programs. I have said before, I think one of the superpowers of being a good digital customer success program manager or a customer marketer even too is don't know your product too well. Don't be so in the Kool-Aid because if you're so in the Kool-Aid, then you're not going to be able to look at things from an average end user, average Joe, average Casey of how is this actually going to land?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to think through how do I receive things? And that informs the way that I would pick which things are most important. The second thing I'll say to that, again, before I get to my top three, is hey, all executives out there that want to have in-app as their main strategy for 2026, there are ways to do it right and there are ways to do it wrong. And I'm with you, Casey. If there's pop-ups that are happening excessively, it's not something I'm Xing those out too. But I do notice when something, and a lot of times I think people don't even know it's an in-app message, like an embedded card or a well-placed tooltip or something like that, can still be effective without being annoying and feel like it's just a commercial or a pop-up or something.
Well said.
So yeah, there's ways to do it right and ways to do it wrong. That in mind. Okay, top three that I would say are necessary for reaching, as Todd said, the most amount out of 100 users.
Yeah, you're not a 3-user license. Your average license count at a company you sold is not 3. It's 100 plus. What would be your top 3?
Okay. Number 1, people might hate or love this, but I'm going to say email. You have to have it. It's just a thing you have to have.
100% agree.
I know that everyone's inboxes are so full, and they are. Man, the amount of things I unsubscribe to in my personal inbox every week is a lot. But it is one of those things that's just a necessary part of any good strategy. It's a necessary portion of how you want to approach communicating to people. And email allows you to do a lot of interesting things. It allows you to share more information, allows you to link out to other resources. It allows you to do things like short form video or standalone video in your emails. There's ways to make the email itself more successful, more engaging, etc. So
Kat, can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gong if you're listening, you guys do a good job on your emails. I usually get an email that it resonates with me with a business outcome or a problem I deal with. And it's short, to the point, quick message, go to it. You can do email really bad when you put in way too many links or a newsletter type of thing, where I'm like, I don't want to hear about how you just went and did this charity, though I appreciate your charity that you went and donated to. Super cool. But I think what happens sometimes is marketing does marketing. Digital success isn't marketing. It is, but it isn't. Like you're saying, 7 ways, 7 times. But I need to get to a business outcome. I need to convince you as a user, because again, Gong is nice because they know they're dealing with sales or CSM, so they hit those problem issues. But beware of letting marketing get in and do marketing things, because marketing has its purpose in a different cycle of the customer journey. But if I'm trying to target people to get engaged and to adopt and try a new feature, you better hit me with the with them. And it better be something that I think about as a persona, right? Instead of, I'm just going to tell you about the new AI module we came out with. And I'm like, well, I don't even use your product. Why are you messaging me about AI? You're like same thing you said with in-app. You can do it really well and you can do it really bad. But I totally agree with email as a number one.
And I think that's a good point of like, if you do email well, then you get someone who is like, great, now I'm going to open these emails every time. Like you are going to open every email that Gong sends you probably because you have had good experiences.
Yeah.
I'm going to open every email that Grammarly sends me because I've had great, like I love how Grammarly serves up, here's your weekly stats of how much better of a writer you are than everybody else. I'm like, great, I love it. Please tell me more. Like tell me where I messed up, or I'll read your newest, and they'll put on the bottom of that, like, here's our latest AI capability. And I'm like, you know what? I will actually look at that now because you've established, like you've got me bought in as a consumer of this. And that's how email can be done well. And it is about framing it of what's in it for the person I'm sending this to, not for me sending it, but for the person I'm reaching out to, what's in it for the user. Especially as a like DCS, you are wanting them to be taking an action, doing something with your product, increasing adoption. It's got to be really fast. So email, number one. Number two, I will say live events. And I'll caveat that by saying, if you can find a way to do simu-live events, even better.
Describe
there
that.
Are some
that's like
simu-live.
pre-recorded ones that feel live, Casey. That's what she means.
Exactly. Simulated live. Like it truly, and I say this having like built them and sat on them, it truly feels like a live event if the technology you're using is really well done. But it allows you to do things even more frequently. I think that the benefit why live events is a great way of like getting more connection with people, or getting, again, if we're trying to get how many out of 100 people can we get to, like, can we actually reach out to and get engaged? A live event is really enticing to your audience because it is like, okay, you're going to get face-to-face time learning about something. You're going to get face-to-face time where you could ask a question, like, especially if you're doing something like office hours, that has been extremely popular in a lot of SaaS companies. Right. And I've seen and built it myself a few times at companies. It can make a huge difference, again, for those companies that have thousands and thousands of end users where your CSMs can't be talking to them all the time. Your support agents can't be talking to them all the time. Having a live event that they can go to, ask questions, get answers the same day is really interesting. And the other reason why live events are intriguing is that same day factor. So you've got, hey, we're getting live face-to-face time with a human. It's like bringing in that human element that I talked about that is still important to figure out a balance of in digital. But then also it's bringing in a timely element. And this goes back to kind of the earlier thing that Todd, you talked about of, does this heighten the experience for like enterprise customers? If you are an enterprise customer and you want to get time with your CSM, you're probably booking out minimum like 3 days in advance, right? A lot of times a week or so, just depending on your calendar, your CSM's calendar. It can get busy. It's hard to get that immediate face-to-face support. A live event can be something that's happening on a daily or weekly basis. And a simu-live event can be something that happens as soon as you decide you want it.
Yeah.
There's a client that I've been working with that has set that up as part of their onboarding, is they have a live onboarding session, walks through exactly how to do, like set up all of the stuff in one go. And the second that you decide that you want to do that, you can join that live event. And it feels like it is happening
Cool.
truly as a live event. So it's another way to get people really engaged, and have that kind of immediate interaction that, depending on what your tool is, can be really crucial. A lot of times there's a really short window of time when somebody's first signed up is when they're the most interested, or when they have a problem is when they need help the most immediately. So sometimes it's really important to have that immediate aspect. And then the third one, that I'll say would be for most tools, would be in-app. I'm still a huge champion of it.
Yeah.
Again, if you can do it right, it can be really effective and if you have the right tool and you set it up in the right way, there's ways you can track the impact. There's tools out there where you can set a goal like, hey, we're going to show this in-app message, and the goal is that afterwards they click this thing in the product, or they take this action in our product. And then you can measure the percentage of people that actually reach that goal after having seen the message. So to your point, Casey, of give me the metrics of how this is actually being effective, there's ways to be able to showcase that can get you to that point of knowing this is a good part of our strategy.
Awesome. TK, what's your 3?
I love both of those two. Of email, I agree, is like the problem is if you're trying to reach 100 people, the vast majority of your people are not going into the application every day. Half of those licenses may not care or know or want to care. So you have to be able to have some method external to your application if you want to reach 100 people. So love the email one. I love.
Is that your number one?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Kat on that.
Kat, I got to nail him down because Mr. Political here. He's going to tell me things and he's not going to rank them. You went through the right way and he ranked them. So Todd, number 1's email. No, what's your number 2?
I agree with her on events as well. I love the point of events.
Events is your number 2?
Yeah, I think events is probably my number 2. And then the other one that I would add in there that I think that I really like, and I get your point there, Kat, about in-app messaging. But again, that only is really going to help with the people who are already there. So if the goal is acquisition of new users or awareness of broader users, going off of points that you have there, Casey, I think the third one I would probably add in is some sort of like short form video tips. Now, the problem is in order for that to work, what I'm doing there is I'm still probably having to use email or messaging exterior to the app to tell them that thing exists. So all that really is just like a different flavor of email, I guess would be my point there, in the sense that I'm adding in hey, I have this really quick tip. Watch this 1-minute video that I really think is going to help you out. That's I think there's a lot of value in that type of an approach, but I guess that would be the third one I would add in if I'm trying to play your I don't like in-app messaging story. So
it's okay. People like it. That's okay with me. That's all right. My top 3 emails, my number 1 too. Number 2, mine is your customer education platform. I do believe that your customer education platform, if done right again, has the ability to engage people in
that's the thing
ways,
though. Most people learning,
different things.
Most people don't use their customer education platform proactively.
I know. I'm just saying.
So, but like it's an untapped value, I guess is the point there.
And then my number 3 is virtual events. But I think your customer education should be hosting those type of events. So it's just another way that you're trying to get them in there. I think your biggest bang for the buck is your customer education platform, if done correctly. And again, in every one of these experiences, it has to be done correctly because all of them could be bad if you do it the wrong way, right? Mm-hmm. Kat, you were going to say something. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no, I'll comment on both those. Like I agree, Todd. I think video is huge. The thing where video can be tricky is how are you getting the video to the people? You still have to
tell them about it.
Yeah, you still have to tell them about it somehow. But it can be, I think video can be really powerful in a way of making your emails into good emails that people actually want to interact with.
Another hot take. I gotta go another hot take really fast.
Yeah.
Who in the hell reads text anymore, meaning like a text document.
Yeah.
Customer education people out there, customer success people, quit doing education.
I'm going to
text
send you,
document.
Casey. I'm going to
Stop
send
it.
you. I'm
Stop
going
it.
to send you.
We all watch TikTok.
Casey,
We all watch freaking reels.
I have a 50-page training manual that I'm going to send you. It's going to make the case. Okay.
I can't take that one anymore either. I can't take it anymore. I get support articles.
I mean,
you need to have those. I get that, but yeah.
You've got you've got TikTok and Instagram Reels and all of that. That's like really shortening our attention span. And then you throw on top of it, I'll add in too, like you throw on AI, which is the other thing I was going to say here is I do think customer education platforms are really valuable. I think of LMS like that's set up well and has information in it is really valuable. But I think again, you're getting into this like an attention span that you're fighting for.
Yeah. Has to be short.
It's got to be short content. It's got to be bite-sized videos. It's got to be bite-sized content in your LMS.
Yes, Kat.
And also, your LMS probably needs to be like, and this is something that I'm not an expert in this at all, but it needs to be AI optimized, like SEO for AI, like whatever that term is that I don't know the name of off the top of my head. But it needs to be something that if you have a chatbot that connects to your support, it should also go through your KB. It should also go through your LMS and your education system and serve up that information quickly, bite-sized, that sort of thing. Because it's I think we're going to see that change a lot in the next couple of years of what does customer education look like and what is successful now versus what was 5-6 years ago.
Amen. Todd, this has been a good one.
It's been great. Kat, we could have talked about lots of stuff today. We probably only talked about a third of what we probably could have talked about. But maybe we'll have to have you back on and we can talk about all kinds of more myths and misconceptions that have to do with digital CS. But this has been awesome. Hey, I don't know if you watched the show before, Kat, but we always ask one last question to all of our guests, which is, this is SaaS Therapy. Casey, as you can tell, needs lots of therapy. And so we always end this with, like any good therapy session, with a homework assignment. And so if you could give our audience one homework assignment, and remember, not everybody who's listening is a digital CS person, but what's one homework assignment you could give our audience that you'd say that you should do around this topic?
Oh man. There's a lot of avenues I could go with this. I'm going to say a homework assignment is, like, if you are at all in the world of CS, if you're a CSM, if you're a leadership in CS, if you're a digital CSM, whatever, your homework assignment is to make a video. We can sit here and preach about, like, video is a great avenue and it's something that should be used. But I think people get hung up and they're like, great, but like, how do I do that? In what way do I use video? And so my homework for you is try it out somewhere. Like, if you are in the middle of building out a customer journey, like a customer program, and you haven't thought about how can I insert video into this, think about it. Record a video, put it in there. If you are a CSM and you're communicating with one of your customers, instead of explaining everything through email text, make a video to walk them through how to do it. Send them that. If you are in leadership and you're trying to figure out what thing do you need to still have in your tech stack, look at a video option and try recording one yourself and figure out, oh, could I be using video with, like, for QBR prep? Could I be using video to, as like an exec sponsor response? Could I be using video for mitigating risk in my Red account calls? Like, find a way to do video and just give it a shot, because once you start doing it, it becomes easier, and then you start identifying, this is the format that works well, and that's how you get to a better use case of it and more success in using that as a part of your digital wheelhouse.
I love it. I think that is great. And, I picked video as my top 3. Casey didn't, so there you go. In your face.
Did too.
I didn't either. But
No, I love it. Kat, thank you so much for being on. This has been awesome. And I guess people need to look up Catalyst CX if they want to find you online. What's the right way to get in touch with you if people have more follow-up questions?
I live on LinkedIn, truly. So I'm on there like all the time. that's a great place to reach me, is either on my LinkedIn or Catalyst CX LinkedIn, or you can find me on my website, catalyst-cx.com. And I'm always open for virtual coffees, so send me a message.
I love it. Thanks, Kat. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Everybody have a great rest of your day. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.